Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Audio Wave Network studios, powered by the Eastside Community Network and sponsored by the Ford Foundation, now a content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the east side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Joining us today is State Senator Adam Hollier. Senator Hollier represents the 2nd District, which includes areas of Detroit, Grosse Pointe, Harper Woods, and Highland Park. Senator Hollier has been in the headlines lately, urging everyone to let their voices be heard during the state's redistricting process that is underway to redraw our state and federal legislative maps. Senator Hollier, welcome back to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks for having me. It's great to actually be in the studio today.
I know he's been a habitual guest when we were on Zoom during the pandemic, but first time having you in the studio. How you feel?
I feel great, and it's fire.
Well, you know what? We're glad to have you. Now, I just learned that you have your own podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
It's the We Can Do Better podcast, because I'm all about doing better. And I think as we talk about the Redistricting Commission and some of these other spaces, it's about regular people trying to do better for their community and their neighborhood. And I think as we really talk about these commissioners, these are people who said they didn't like the system and volunteered to do an incredibly difficult job that's super complicated. And all they're asking for is feedback. I mean, they're literally begging. They wanted 10,000 people to show up and give testimony to this point. They've gotten about 600. So I really think it's important for platforms like yours and mine and all of us to be encouraging people to go out and say, hey, this is what my neighborhood looks like. This is what my community is. And the podcast I do is all about elevating the voices of people who are doing cool things in the neighborhood and the community.
Oh, I think that's really great. We Can Do Better is kind of exciting to me. When we do postmortems after this year's campaigns, political campaigns, after we vote, we're going to do a little postmortem. Hey, can we get you to join us possibly on Election Day?
Of course.
Yeah, because I want to do some election night coverage of what's happening Election Day, November 2nd. But as we do our postmortems, I do want to put out there that I had suggested to somebody that they possibly run on the theme, A Better Detroit. I think that the concept that we can do better is so important. So I look forward to our invitation to your podcast.
I'm in there. I'm in there. But like when we talk about better, I think, folks are like, hey, I want this thing. It's like, all right, I want that thing too, but I would take anything better than what I have today. And they're like, no, you can't take better. Because I was like, no, I want better. Give me a better district. Give me a better community. Give me a better. And that's where we're going. I mean, when we talk about health and all these other things, it's about getting that incremental growth.
I agree with you. And a lot of times what people say is, well, things are better. And I'm like, cool, but we can still do better. And so I need to know what that pathway is to better. So, I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, various marketplaces for ideas to be shared. And who has more ideas than Donna Givens-Davidson, right? To go on the We Can Do Better podcast. To
Nobody.
Share ideas for better. I don't know a person. I don't know of another person. So that's going to be fun. Donna, you got to go.
I'm flattered. Thank you.
For real, it's a real thing. How's the day finding you guys? Before we get into the headlines and the hot takes, how are you today? How's the day finding you, Donna?
I am recovering from really a lot of anger, a lot of distress, a very just insurmountable sadness. My mom has been released from the hospital into a rehab center, and I've had a firsthand look at what we're doing with seniors in our society. And over the weekend, I was not allowed to visit my mother because I said that there's no visiting hours where family can come in. On the one hand, and on the other hand, they say that, we don't know what to do with her. And so the only time she's calm and she follows any type of directions is when you're here. So what they decided was they just didn't care over the weekend. It breaks my heart, and it makes me aware that we really do need to do more for our seniors. We can't throw them away. There's no way people would let their children be in these conditions. Why are we letting our parents be there? So, they lost her dentures. They could not even describe basic things like when's the last time she ate. And when I went to visit her,
My God.
On her bedside table, they had half of her dentures, the upper dentures, a dry peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Doritos, and peanut butter crackers. That was her lunch. She had not touched it. She's not on any IV receiving nutrition. they aren't supplementing her nutrition. What is she eating? So it is, for my mother, just horror. And for seniors across the nation and the seniors in our community, I started looking up rules. You know, the kind of person I'm on my computer looking up rules, like, what are the visitation rules? And I found that there was guidance that's been issued by Medicare and Medicaid and by the national entities that govern, nursing homes and rehab centers. And I saw that what they were doing was in conflict with those. But somebody said, well, they can do whatever they want. These are just guidance. It's just good ideas. There's no oversight. There's no accountability. And Adam, I'm saying to you, as our state senator, we've got to look at so many things. But one of the things we've got to look at is holding people accountable who receive Medicaid funds, who receive Medicare funds, public funds, for not just following guidance, but following best practices and how we care for our elderly. If we don't make them do it, they won't do it. Some will and some won't. And depending on your ability to pay and your ability to research the center, you may end up with a good one. But that's really where I'm at right now, is just understanding that we have not really been paying attention from a public policy and a community advocacy standpoint, what is happening to old people.
Well, it's not funny, but it's relevant that you mentioned that, because the Detroit Area Agency on Aging released a report a few years ago called Dying Before Their Time, talking about how Black people, typically Detroiters, die before their time compared to if they receive care or are in suburban communities. And so much of these things comes up. And especially now as we're dealing with, a global pandemic and COVID that has not gone away, but this moment where we are struggling to get staff people to work in these facilities, SEIU and other folks are talking about getting better pay and those kind of things, so that the people who work in these spaces can afford to live and do all those other kind of things. And you get a quality employee who can manage their stuff and be a stable employee, versus, because in a lot of these places, they're paying so low, as soon as someone can get a better job, they're moving on to another job at a hospital or some of these other kind of things. So it's a big problem that we've really got to address.
Yeah. And one more thing about that, is not just about paying and setting up the pay. It's also about the fact that people own these facilities and they're being paid pretty well. It's not like they're unable to pay their bills. A lot of times they're making a lot of money owning those facilities. And people have a tendency, when they own facilities that privatize care, to provide as little service as possible for the service for as little money as possible, so they can maximize their profit.
Absolutely.
And that's where rules come in. So even as we talk about putting more money into these centers, we've got to have more accountability to ensure that the money is going to workers, that the money is going to facilities, and the money is going to the kinds of resources that improve the quality of life, and not just lining the pockets of people who line up to benefit from these increases.
So what's the situation now as it stands, Donna? You say you were recovering from anger. So where are you now?
Praying. You have to remember that sometimes God is in charge of things that you aren't in control. Sometimes I like to play God and think I can fix everything. And so I was trying to do that this week, and I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make it work. And I couldn't. I didn't have the power to do what I felt needed to be done. But we are working with everybody to get her relocated. It's a slower process that I would like, but it's a process that is underway. And by tomorrow, she should be in a better place.
Nice.
Well, let's talk later about your experience and what the long-term solution is, because it's really important that we get this right.
Thank you.
Senator Hollier, how's the day finding you?
Good. It's hard to come back from that and be like, yeah, everything's going great. I'm like, that's which is my normal response. Everything is like, I'm that little Lego guy of like, everything is awesome. My kids are doing great. Like the pandemic has been interesting for me, right? Like I know we've talked about this a number of times, and especially being here in the Stoudemire Wellness Hub. Like I was with Marlo at the beginning of the pandemic, and the beginning was so hard. I had to redouble my efforts in the family stuff, right? Like my daughter was like, hey, we're going to play. And I spent more time with her than I ever have. We had a son, and over the last couple months and year, I'm going to be so grateful for all the things that I have every moment. And my wife was teasing because my daughter is, I would say, more than clingy. She is like attached, right? She is like, hey, daddy, where are you going? And this is like, I lay her down to bed And she's like, well, are you going to sleep? I was like, no, I just got to do some more work. What kind of work? Are you sending emails? Where are you doing those emails?
She sounds like a journalist.
My wife says she sounds like my girlfriend. She's like, so when I drop her off at school, she's like, Daddy, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to work. She's like, are you going to Lansing or are you going to be at home? I'm like, I'm going to Lansing. She's like, well, are you picking me up or mom? So, like I said,
she got a question.
Life is good. My daughter is inquisitive. My son is growing. He's about to walk any day. I'm grateful for all the blessings I have and appreciated to be in the position to make a difference in people's lives. And so I can't complain.
Cool.
Right? People complain to me. I got to go make that happen.
Yeah. I just have one question for the both of you. How about those Lions?
I'm excited. This is exactly what I wanted them to be doing.
Yes, you too.
I'm a season ticket holder. This is season number 12, but I'm excited about them finally admitting that they are rebuilding, to roster a young team, and to say, hey, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to try and see who can do these kind of things. And next year will be better, but we're going to fight real hard.
Well, I'll tell you,
They've been going down
for
swinging.
a different reason. I'm excited because I, back in the day when they fired Jim Caldwell, they said that he was underperforming, and I'm just so excited to see them not being able to do a better job. And it's like, you know what? It's exciting to me to watch them blame Matt Stafford and watch him do what he's doing with the Rams. I think that when organizations fail, they have a tendency to blame everybody but themselves. But now it's pretty clear Matt Stafford is doing great. And now they're on their second coach after Caldwell, and now they're rebuilding. I mean, they've been rebuilding for my entire life, and I'm 58, so now they're rebuilding again. They had that one little short period of time where they were actually doing something. So I'm super excited to see them have to honestly acknowledge the fact that their leadership has failed, because whenever you have this much failure over this long a period of time, it's you.
Well, let's just be conscious that they have new leadership. Now, I always root for a black GM. I have a hierarchy: black coach, black quarterback, black GM. So if we can get that Zit guys going, and the Lions got, almost all their new coaching staff are black. They are substantial change. So new season, new leadership. I'm here for it.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? We'll see what happens next year. We need a new quarterback for sure, right?
Yes, we do.
All right.
This is fascinating to me. I'm still just not there yet in watching the NFL religiously. Yeah, but I'll get there. Listen, y'all, it's time for our new segment, Hot Takes, where we run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. Today's Hot Takes: HBCU Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design geared to serve Black creatives in Detroit. That's a headline by the Michigan Chronicle. So last week, I was invited to attend a press conference at the Lewis College of Business, where Dr. Dwayne Edwards, a designer and owner of Pencil Academy in Oregon, and the sole stockholder for the shuttered Lewis College of Business, has plans to reopen it as a College of Business and Design Center to serve folks, Black creatives in the city of Detroit. And it's being powered and backed by the Gilbert Family Foundation, Target was there, and College for Creative Studies. And I think there may be another funder. I can't think of who that other funder was. And so Jennifer Gilbert was there, and folks were really excited. Dr. Edwards got up and talked about, the experience that so many Black folks have with high school counselors and college counselors telling them that, that's something that you want to achieve and you need to go and do this. You need to go play, sports or something. He was like, no, I want to be, a designer, so he started Pencil Academy, and now he wants to pay it forward by reopening Michigan's in Detroit's only HBCU, backed by, College for Creative Studies. And so I think that they will be taking applications for a semester in the spring. Right now, it looks like classes will be held at the College for Creative Studies. I'm still trying to figure out what the relationship will be between CCS and the new Pencil Lewis College of Business and Design. They have some legislation that they are proposing in Lansing to get, the HBCU designation back for Pencil. And so this was this news broke to a very excited Detroit. I saw nothing but raves and reviews about this potential HBCU coming to the largest majority Black city in America to have an HBCU. So what say you guys? How y'all feeling about this?
Well, when I was growing up, the college and the university with the highest enrollment of Black students in the nation was Wayne State University. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have an HBCU here. We had Wayne State, and Wayne State played a really big role. Now, my husband graduated from the College of Creative Studies, at the time the Center of Creative mm-hmm. Studies. It was an extremely expensive school, and there was very low Black enrollment. And so it's interesting to me that this initiative to create an HBCU is tied to a university that still has relatively low Black enrollment when it's in the middle of the city of Detroit. I think in the last taking, about 11.2% of the students at the College of Creative Studies are Black. Mm-hmm. And, it's not just because we don't have Black creatives, but because they can't afford to be there. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, calling it an HBCU was one thing. HBCUs, in longstanding HBCUs, sometimes have a hard time getting Black students to enroll in certain programs. If you look at nursing and engineering and medical school programs, they're not all Black. So what makes an HBCU an HBCU? Are they expecting to have larger than normal Black enrollment? And if so, how are they going to select those students, and how are they going to pay for this schooling? If they can make that work, it's exciting. But I just think the devil is in the details, and HBCU is a sexy name in this environment where people know that Black students are really having a hard time getting in. Mm-hmm. But what is the guarantee that there's going to be a priority for Black students? And one of the values of an HBCU is the kind of hands-on attention a lot of students get coming from, traditional high schools, where they may not get all of the educational support they need, and they go to an HBCU. Not all of them, but sometimes that's what an HBCU offers, is this bridge between where mm-hmm. you are in high school and where you need to be in order to excel in your field. Mm-hmm. Are they going to provide that assistance, or are they going to call themselves an HBCU, use standard admissions tactics, and not provide the kind of scholarship aid and other support to make it really accessible to Black students?
I mean, I say let's ask. let's ask about those details. Let's get Dr. Dwayne Edwards on the podcast. Let's get Jennifer Gilbert, if we can, on the podcast. Dan Gilbert's wife, Jennifer Gilbert, had remarks there. And, I don't know if you remember this, but the Gilberts made a significant investment in Cranbrook. I think it was around $30-something million that they gave Cranbrook. And I think this investment in the reopened Lewis College of Business and Design is a part of that big investment that they're doing here in the city of Detroit. What is it? $500 million, $500 million. And we have a friend in that office who's helping to steward those resources. And so I think as they continue to flesh out details, I think that we are keenly positioned to help influence some of those details and steward some of those resources where they should go.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the people start out with good intentions mm-hmm. without looking at barriers. Mm-hmm. I'm a person who has worked in the past 35 years to figure out how to help people overcome barriers to access the resources they need. So barriers are always going to be front and center for me. I don't start out with this starry-eyed vision, because I've seen how people, run up against it. I've seen what graduation rates look like. I've seen what matriculation rates look like. And I know that there are some real barriers to making an HBCU of this type work. Now, it's a very specialized HBCU with a very specialized type of design experience, and I really hope it helps. I mean, listen, I think we had a couple people on a couple episodes ago. Was it Denzel McCampbell had on those super cool gym shoes, and then you have on some nice gym shoes, and it's gym shoe design, right?
Yeah, well, that's what Pencil does, but I think it's design overall,
right? But I mean, mm-hmm. I really think that there's a lot of creative design in footwear. I shouldn't even call them gym shoes, but footwear design. I think there's so much opportunity there. I hope we make it work, and I'd love to have them on here so we can figure out if they've thought through what those barriers are. hopefully they have. And if not, hopefully they ground their experience in the experience of people who worked helping kids overcome these things in the past.
Yeah. So, Senator, they have to go through a reinstatement process. Have you seen any of the legislation that goes to reestablish as a educational institution, more specifically HBCU?
I haven't seen it this time, but I would be lying if I didn't say that when I got elected, I was like, hey, man, how can we get Lewis College of Business back open? Because we need stuff. Right. And when we talk about having our own things, that's when we get to talk about doing our own things and things that are designed for us, not accommodating something for us because we came into a space that was not ours, but to design a space that is meant to make us be successful. And I love CCS, right? Like one of my first projects, working as a staffer was helping to get the Guardian building and the Argonaut building fixed so they could move in and do that. It's in my district, right? Like I love that. But as a legislator, we need our own stuff. So anything they need to make that happen, I'm going to be down for and happy to help and support and, help try and get them the funding that they need to be successful. We know that it's expensive to run a university. We underfund them.
And it's a private university.
And the big problem we always have with Black colleges is they don't have the enrollment or they don't have the endowment to support the enrollment that is necessary to run a school. And so I want to be a part of helping them be successful.
And then again, like I said, just making sure, first of all, that we connect them with UNCF so that UNCF scholarships are available to students there and that they have a mechanism to ensure that adequate numbers of Black students can afford to go to this private college because HBCUs can be more expensive anyway. And if they're connected and powered by the College of Creative Studies, I'm concerned about those costs. Although, like you, I've admired the charter schools. We know how the charter schools get paid for through state student aid. I'm just hoping that they have a similar kind of mechanism for helping launch an HBCU in a city like ours.
If ever there was a time to have money and to start a transformational project, it's today. We need to be working on it.
Especially for Black folks. Everybody, we in season.
And we need to take advantage while it happens.
You are absolutely right about that.
Because winter comes quick.
Winter comes quick. There you go.
Winter is coming. Listen, hot takes. New Detroit home repair program can fix 1,000 roofs. Nearly 5,000 applied. This is by Bridge Detroit. Our reporter Nusrat Rahman is reporting this. So more than 4,800 Detroiters have applied for a new roof repair program that can accommodate 1,000 people, demonstrating the vast need for home repairs across the city. But city officials are saying that they expect at least 10,000 applicants before the deadline. And the deadline is October 3/1. Similarly, what was reported today out of the University of Michigan is that those numbers, as Donna predicted back when we reported on it, maybe it was a few months ago around the home repair numbers, that number, it was set around maybe 25 or 26,000, is much higher than what they originally thought. An estimated 37,630 Detroit households are living in housing with neglected and often dangerous maintenance issues, according to the new University of Michigan DMAX report. And so what we are seeing laid bare here is a palpable need on part of residents to fix up their homes, to save their wealth, and to save their family's legacy. And what we are seeing, at least in our reporting at Bridge Detroit and talking to residents who desperately need this, is that $30 million ain't enough to fix this issue, number one. But then number two, maybe an expansion of eligibility requirements, right? For some folks who may be living paycheck to paycheck, but ain't like in poverty. You know what I'm saying? And so there's so many people left out. And of course, preference is going to our seniors and for folks who are already tapped into the HP TAP process that relinquishes folks of the responsibility of paying their property taxes. It's an increase from what the city has been able to do, but of course it's not enough. We can do better.
Much better.
When Mayor Duggan ran for office, he made a commitment to tear down every vacant blighted building in the city. Imagine if the mayor made a commitment to fix up every blighted roof in the city. Don't know where the resources are going to come from. Don't have anything, but I'm going to run the city in a way that I find the dollars to help fix up every home that needs fixing up. It's a different type of governance that says, I'm going to do the kinds of things that the residents in the city think they need. And I think it's a difference between a system and a program. Programs are optional and voluntary. Systems are built into how you operate your government. You have a water system. You have a fire suppression system in our community and a policing system. We need a housing system that says this is how we as a community are providing for housing so that we don't have drop in the bucket things and we don't celebrate victories that help 1,000 people. I'm happy for those 1,000 people who get help, but
and an additional 500 homes, will also be included to decide,
Okay, 1,500. Okay, let's look at the scale.
Yeah.
If you have, did you say 37,000?
Yeah, upwards of 37,000.
If we have upwards of 37,000 and we're talking about 1,500, do the quick math and ask yourself what is a drop in the bucket compared to the need. And the thing about the home repair is the need does not shrink over time. It gets worse. If you have a house that has a bad gutter, in a couple years, you're going to have a bad roof. You're going to have water damage inside the home, electrical problems inside the home. And so we can pretend like we can just keep kicking this can down the road. But at some point, we've got to say, if housing is important, let's figure out how we as a nation are going to house people who are underhoused. So I don't put this all on the mayor. I think that I put it on our nation for not having a housing plan, even though we're in a housing crisis.
We had a presidential election when nobody was talking about housing.
And listen, I've asked every political candidate, this, I've actually gotten into arguments with political candidates. Why aren't you talking about housing? And they have all kinds of reasons. When I talk about housing, they talk about home ownership as though home ownership is the need all fix all. And keeping in mind that these 37,000 homes, many of them are occupied by homeowners. Mm-hmm. So owning a home that's falling apart is not empowerment.
No.
Unless you have the resources to fix it. And we are unwilling as a society to look at the total need. And so we piecemeal it and we turn our heads and we celebrate what we call small victories when in fact they're drops in the bucket. So $30 million was never enough. I don't know anybody running for office we had two city council candidates who were in our debate last week who said, no, it's not even beginning to be enough. I don't know if the city's housing director thinks it's enough. I don't know if the planning director thinks it's enough. But at the same time, what we end up with is $30 million because after we get done spending money on things that we prioritize, $30 million is all that's left.
Mm-hmm. I should also note that we at Bridge Detroit tried to get the raw survey results that the city administered while trying to prioritize how those ARPA funds would be administered. And the city wouldn't give us those surveys. I want to name that because we think, and I think we can safely assume that outside of the buckets that Mayor Duggan has identified as top priorities, I think that there are so many other things that are plaguing Detroiters that will come out in those survey results that they won't give us. Senator Hollier, as a steward of resources at our state capitol, what say you?
I say we got to spend more money, and we have money at the state level that we should be getting down to deal with housing, get to all these points. I appreciate that Donna brought up that this is not a home ownership issue. Everyone always wants to say, oh, well, we just need more home ownership. No, we need a lot more options that don't require someone to have a home, right? We need some place where people can go and live in a house and just pay rent and know that they don't have to worry about the roof leaking or the heat not working or any of those kind of things, because they can't manage or don't want to manage those kind of things, right? And that is the problem that we get into, is this idea of you are only a good part of society if you own your own home. And there's some point where you're like, I was maintaining my house for a long time and then my roof fell in and I can't handle it. If you ever are in a high point in the city of Detroit, like for example, at the top of NSO, and you look out into the neighborhood, you will see so many blue tarps on roofs because people can't afford to fix them.
They're estimating the cost of $7,000 to $13,000. Who got $7,000 to $13,000 just in the bank ready to spend on a roof?
But the big challenge is, who has $7,000 to $13,000 to spend on a house that's worth $7,000 to $13,000? Right?
Come on now. Come on now.
If your house is worth $100,000, $200,000 and you spend in $7,000, $10,000 to fix your roof, that's a good investment. If your house is worth $7,000 and you're like, well, I could save a little money and then I can move to a better spot. We need to be talking about Black developers, about Black ownership, about these spaces and individuals who can fix these things. And that means having, like a core of individuals who can go out and provide these services and get paid to do it as they facilitate their growth and developing their business, right? So those are the kind of things that are unique and creative ways to spend money that empower people, not just to have a house fix or a roof fix, but teach them a skill, allow them an opportunity to do that and to build their business. So yes, we should not have just spent all our money on demolition, but we had to get the houses down, and we now have to transition to making sure that you can stay in the house.
Roof repairs are.
If I could just say that, oh my goodness, I just lost my thought. You were saying, if we want to grow Detroit's population, we're going to have to do something about this. Because it's easier for a person to just get up and leave to the suburbs into a newer rental property where they can afford it and pay less than it is to stay here. One of the questions about the population is we act like we can just attract in people in downtown and midtown and we're going to grow Detroit. The reality is that the people who are leaving are people who are living in these houses with blue tarps on them, people who are living in houses where they can't afford the water bill and are just giving up, and the tax bill, and just giving up and saying, let's move out. And so I think that there is a business case to be made for the city to come up with this system of investing in people who do not, have a lot of money, but can attract tax dollars, can attract congressional seats, can attract the kinds of things that we're losing as we talk about, as we move into our topic for the day. One of the reasons we lost people in Detroit is because of a home repair problem that is so serious.
Which also exacerbates the need for affordable homes in the city of Detroit. Because if you can't fix your roof, if you can't keep up your house, you can't afford your home. But really quick, before we transition, roof repairs are slated to begin in spring of 2020. The next phase of the program will include that extra 500 homes down that I was talking about. Although those type of repairs are yet to be determined, but electrical or plumbing is probably what they're thinking. So the number one thing that the city is saying that they want to do is get these 1,500 homes repaired and make a case to secure additional funding to continue this program. So for those of you who are wondering how you can apply, and I don't even know how the selection process and will go and what that will look like if they only have 1,500 slots and we're looking at 10,000 applications, you can go to DetroitMI.gov/Renew Detroit. And this is the first program that's coming out of that ARPA money, that $30 million. So DetroitMI.gov/Renew Detroit to fill out your application, or call area code 313-224-0274 between 9 and 6 to fill out an application over the phone. And we say to you, good luck.
Absolutely.
That wraps up Hot Takes. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. So for our featured discussion this week, we are talking to Senator Hollier about the redistricting process and how you can make your voice heard. Senator, what would you like for Detroiters to know and voters in Southeastern Michigan to know about the current redistricting process?
The thing that they need to know is that we currently have 17 districts that are majority Black, 2 at the congressional level, 5 at the state Senate level, and 10 at the state House level. And the commission has drawn 0. In one of their most recent updates, they drew 2 House maps. The reason that's so important is because the Voting Rights Act says that if you have majority minority districts, you have to maintain them. If you could draw more, you should draw more. And their experts said that a VRA district would be acceptable at 35%. And we all know that 35% in a group of anything is not a majority. It's not a win.
In total population or voting population?
They have, at first it was total population. They've moved to voting population. But the thing that we need folks to understand is that it's not about what is your voting population, is what is your voter turnout. And so as we've continue to mobilize and get people to engage in this process, which the commission has asked for, right? This is not something where the commission is like, we don't want to hear from nobody. These are people who want to hear from. They want feedback and they are listening. And so when people show up to the TCF Center tomorrow, to begin testimony at 1 p.m. They can arrive as early as noon. We're going to have a rally and some training at 12:30. If people,
that's Wednesday, October 20th.
Correct.
Yeah.
If people show up and are heard, the commission is going to listen, and they want to be heard. And what you should be talking to them about is what your neighborhood looks like. These are people who do not know your community. Now, there are two Detroiters who I think are in an incredibly difficult job and task because they have an expert. Two commissioners, correct, who have been told by an expert, hey, this is what you need to do to make sure you get sued. What we need to do is talk to them about what it means to represent our community, what it looks like, and to understand that these are good people, right? These are people who signed up because they wanted to make sure that their community was represented and they think they're doing a good job. So when you talk about these spaces, you got to talk about your real life experience, right? When you talk about LEAP, you need to say, hey man, draw the LEAP district together. We organize over here. When I'm talking to Grosse Pointers, they're like, draw us with Detroit because they work with you, because they had 30 inches of water in their basement just like you did. And they want the same person to represent them, to understand their struggles. That's what we should be talking about at the commission. It is not some generic talking point piece. It's draw majority black districts because that's the law, and Detroit is the blackest city in the country. It's the blackest city in the state. And it's unconscionable not to have black elected officials coming out of the city of Detroit when 2/3 of the black legislators in the state come from Detroit.
Right.
So communities like Benton Harbor that are majority black can never elect state legislators because they live in a sea of white, right? And so it's so important to have those same legislators here who can represent black issues like their lead issues and all these other things in ways that other communities can't.
So I have a couple questions for you, and I do want to acknowledge the people who represented our community in the map drawing process, because we did have people led by our Chief Operating Officer, Angela Brown Wilson, who was working with community leaders to create maps and to advocate for those maps early in the process. But, there's when you talk about political representation and having black legislators in office, it feels as though most legislation that happens in our state happens without the consent of black legislators. Is that true?
I think that's a balance, right? So the Senate, for example, which I serve in, has been a majority controlled. Republicans have had control the entirety of my lifetime. So for the last 36 years, because of the way they've drawn redistricting. Do black legislators impact legislation? Absolutely. Do we drive it the way that we ought to? No. But a lot of that has to do with gerrymandering, which is why the commission is in such a unique opportunity. And as they talk about partisan fairness, it's important to note that drawing black districts into the inner ring suburban communities is not addressing partisan fairness, right? They're drawing black Detroiters into safe white Democratic communities in Oakland County and Macomb County. They are not drawing black Detroiters into northern Macomb or northern Oakland County, where it would make a difference in maybe flipping a seat. Instead, they're making some of those competitive seats that you see out of a Royal Oak or Sterling Heights or East Point more Democrat, and making those seats that we need to pick up less Democrat. That's the problem. Okay.
Because Brian Dickerson wrote a little bit about this on Sunday.
New political maps threaten black politicians, not black voters.
Right.
It's an op-ed, and
lots of people think that they know what's best for black folks when they aren't looking at our communities.
Well, but I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question he had is, do you believe that black Detroiters are better served by a party doomed to perpetual minority status than they would be by white or mixed representation in a revitalized Democratic legislative majority?
That's not the option, right? Again, if they were drawing black people, black Detroiters into districts that they were going to be the flip, then that would be different. That would be fundamentally different. That would be important. They are drawing black Detroiters into districts with East Point, when what they need to do is unpack Macomb County and draw more Democratic seats, which they could do by not drawing all the Democrats that are on the southern end of Macomb County into one district. Instead of drawing more black Detroiters into districts like Royal Oak, you need to keep the Democratic base in Royal Oak in communities like Troy and Rochester Hills, because that makes that a competitive seat. So they take this Democratic community, Royal Oak, out of a 50-50 district and make that district more Republican. So Oakland County is trending more Democrat, and they have made a Republican seat more Republican.
Okay, so do you have maps that you've drawn?
No, I didn't draw maps, right? So
why not?
Because the whole goal was to get elected officials out of the drawing maps, right? But the NAACP worked with the Promote the Vote campaign. They drew maps.
Okay.
And their first set of maps drew majority black districts. But the commission's experts said, hey, they weren't going to accept those kind of maps. So they drew, instead of majority black districts, which are 50+1, they drew more 45% maps than the commission did.
So we can look at the NAACP as a tool that our community can look at and advocate for that tool, because I think it's so much easier to advocate for something
that you can
than
see.
to complain about something. And as much as we did the LEAP advocacy, if the NAACP has already done the job, it seems to me like we may want to get our community in support of the NAACP's maps.
Yeah, and those are the Promote the Vote maps. So if you Google Promote the Vote, you will see those maps. They were submitted to the commission, and right now, we'll just talk about the Senate. They drew, right now there are 5 majority black districts. We'll call those the VRA districts. They drew 7 VRA districts because they were operating under the decreased black populations thing.
Translate the alphabet soup, VRA.
Yeah, the VRA is the Voting Rights Act. So
Act,
the Voting Rights Act has typically been interpreted to say you need to draw a minority district, which is 50+1. So a actual majority in that district of the minority community, which in this case would be black people, right? And so the commission said, hey, that doesn't need to be 50+1. So the Promote the Vote team said, well, if you weren't going to use 50+1, then draw more districts. And that's what they did in that space.
That's awesome. So I would love to, to me, sometimes when you have Promote the Vote and you've got some folks who've already done the heavy lifting,
absolutely,
let's support that. What concerns me is having people, we only have until tomorrow, but we can do what we can to get people out there tomorrow so that we can have people. And I'm going to use whatever kind of resources we have to encourage people along that one singular message. Promote the Vote is representing us.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't require a whole lot of interpretation. They have the maps and they know how to look at them.
Yeah. The Promote the Vote did that. The AFL-CIO drew maps that draw majority black districts. There are a lot of folks that have done those kind of things, and it's important to recognize that. And the commission is listening. The other piece that the commission is listening to is what people talk about their neighborhoods, right? So even with the Promote the Vote thing, they didn't necessarily get the LEAP district right or all those kind of things, and the commissioners are still listening. So if you say, hey, like me, for example, Donna, I live in the North End. The North End is still split between 2 communities in a lot of these spaces. I would prefer if they didn't split the North End because that's the neighborhood I was raised in. It's one community. It should be together. Talking to the commission about those kind of things that's relevant to you is also important.
I'm going to be honest with you. If I have a choice between underrepresentation and having the community split and being represented by different people, I will have the community split.
But it's not a zero-sum game.
I'm sure it's not. But what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to disagree too much. What I'm trying to say is that we have the LEAP district. They know what it is. We can bring it back up. But to me, having LEAP all in one congressional district, one state senate district is secondary.
Tell folks what the LEAP district is.
Lower East Side Action Plan District.
I'm here to translate y'all.
Thank you. And Orlando knows what it is because Orlando was one of the people who helped organize it for so many years. So I'm going to let you tell people what it is.
Well, no, I just wanted to translate the acronym. The Lower East Side Action Plan is it's a planning process and project that has been taking place since 2009 here on the Lower East Side. A little bit more now than the 15 square mile district, as some new neighborhoods have come on board to be adopted within the LEAP district boundaries, neighborhoods like McDougal Hunt. And it has been an advocacy and organizing tool for planning and development for multiple neighborhoods on the Lower East Side, taking a realistic look at current conditions and determining future recommendations on land, future recommendations on housing and development that makes sense. And this planning has been going on now for more than a decade. And so it's pretty organized.
Now a coalition. It's a LEAP coalition. We had to drop the word lower, right? But that's the history of it. And so Orlando knows the history better than anybody. But we have to drop the word lower. It's been controversial. Why are we the Lower East Side? And it's like, okay, because South. And so we're now acknowledging that we're the Southeast coalition, but SEEP is not nearly as cool as LEAP. And
No,
so we are
I
just,
guess it's not.
it's just LEAP is such a cool name. So we're the LEAP Coalition. But
Got it.
Orlando did an excellent job just getting people engaged for so long and keeping them engaged and keeping these neighborhood leaders front and center. And so we're building and strengthening our community voice because we understand that we need to speak together. I think what we really, really, really want is representatives in Lansing who understand not just Democratic priorities, but the things, the souls of Black folks, right? We want people to understand.
Come on, the boys.
Come on, because, I understand that Adam Hollier is from Cornell, and,
Oh, gosh.
and so, but I think that really when you think of the whole issue of understanding what's happening in our neighborhood levels, when you know what it's like to be here, it's very different sometimes than the Democratic agenda. In fact, if we get a majority,
because Democrats,
please have folks talking about housing? Like Democrats,
but
don't
Democrats
really
be missing the
prioritize
message.
housing.
But that is about representation, right? So if you are the community that elects me, that is what my issue is.
But can I ask this question though, Adam, and not to cut you off? And let's say the Redistricting Commission adopts to promote the vote, and we see adequate representation. Is it possible that the representation of these majority Black districts can still be marginalized when they get to the state house and Senate, and legislation continues to happen in spite of these Black representatives?
It's absolutely possible, but the Promote the Vote maps, which were done with the NAACP and the League of Women Voters and a host of other things, have what they call a zero partisan deviation. And so for the last 10 years, Senate Dems, or more people have voted for Senate Democratic candidates statewide than Republicans. And the way the maps are supposed to be drawn, that would result in Democrats winning a majority. And if Democrats won a majority and they won that majority with a Detroit base, right now there are 5 members of the state Senate that are Detroit based, right? That is
a marginal number.
That's almost a third though. So that's still the biggest concentration of our space. So when we talk about that change, if you have that same level of representation, you still have those people, then the issues that come out of our community are housing. They are all those kind of things. And we are spending money in doing that as a priority. The challenge is in this state, the people who have been in the majority are from Republican communities that are very rural, and the way we spend money and the way our things are prioritized have been different. And when we talk about in the Democratic Party, the people who make the most noise, who donate the most, are the very far left progressive individuals who are more concerned with climate change and some of these very progressive issues than often Black legislators are tasked with being concerned about can we get Ms. Johnson's roof to stop leaking? Can we get her to her doctor's appointment? Can we do those kind of things? So that's the
But we've got to understand these are not separate issues. Ms. Johnson's roof is leaking because climate change is putting pressure on her home, and we shouldn't have to choose one over the other.
I don't disagree, but it's about which way you are looking at it. Which lens are you thinking about?
What's your entry point?
I agree, but I think a lot of times, quite honestly, our Black legislators are pretty conservative in some issues.
Yeah.
And our Black legislators are, I've heard so many people, Black Democrats, really saying, what about progressive issues? We're all about big business. And their idea of, I've heard a lot of people believe that that business investment is the way we should go. Building Black wealth is our approach, and progressives are anti-wealth. And I think if you talk to Ms. Johnson is not about business wealth as much as she is about getting her roof fixed either. And so I think really we do need to have a come to the table moment where we just all have a conversation about what the priorities should be representing this community.
Without question.
But my response about the Black legislators and about understanding the housing needs is in response to Brian Dickerson, who said, do we need Black representatives at the table as long as we can have a majority? We need Black legislators there, and then we need them listening to Black people in our community, because I've heard so many people say that the people who are championing the fact that we have poison being spewed from some of these factories into our neighborhoods are not the Black people
who represent us. A water crisis in Benton Harbor.
A water crisis in Benton Harbor. These are real life issues that people are facing, and Mrs. Johnson faces them too. She's breathing that stinky air, and it's making her sick and sending her to the hospital too soon. How do we prioritize and really make sure that whoever is representing us in Lansing is listening to people who are the least of us in our community, as well as people who are wealthy, because you don't want one side against the other and everybody in between. But how do we make sure that's happening in Lansing?
I think it's a geography thing. I think in a kind of simple way, the East Side has benefited from council by districts in a fundamental way. You remember before council by districts, there were not a single council member that lived on the East Side. The level of engagement and investment with East Side communities, I think, has increased substantially when you talk about that. And when we look at the state legislature, and
Alberta Tinsley lived on the East Side.
If you lived in this community, you may or may not say that. And I think that, the reality is a lot of people who live here feel as though council is not being responsive to the concerns inside of our neighborhoods.
Fair.
I've been inside council meetings, evening council meetings, where people have lined up with complaints. And it's everything as simple as
call me
lanes, call me back, bike lanes, to legislation that gets passed. Did East Siders really feel good about when proposal was moved to the ballot without any kind of accountability mechanisms to ensure certain things were done? Do East Siders feel as though the ARPA budgeting process was in their favor and that city council really did a good job of representing us? So I think it's fair to say that there are people inside of our community who, A, don't vote because they don't believe anybody who is elected to any elected position is representing them right now, or B, do vote and walk around and say our votes are taken for granted, which we hear quite a bit of. And you hear quite a bit of people saying, you know what, both parties are selling us out. And I don't necessarily think that's true. I think people don't always know and understand the political process, but I do think that sometimes it helps to sharpen the message and to sit down with folks and to say, what do you think? And my hats off to you, because we are on our show, and I will say this about Senator Hollier. He will call us up after a show and say, what did you mean by that? And what do you think should be done by that? And really try to make sure he's listening to what we're saying and not just responding, reacting. And even when there's a criticism, trying to work through that criticism. He loves sparring with us. Of that. I know,
I'm
right?
trying to listen. I mean, I think, but like that, I just celebrated 10 years of happy marriage. So, my wife's going to college. I'm listening. But that's the thing. Like, who do you listen to, and where is your base? And for better or for worse, politics is about where is your base and who is talking and all those kind of things. And that's why tomorrow, or the Citizens Redistricting Commission, is so important.
It's not about who's contributing the most money.
No, that is a proxy, right? Like, it's about, can you win? And you can win with money. You can win with resources. You can win with power. You can win with people. But people are always the most important piece. It's just about, can you reach them?
I don't think people feel that way. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that people absolutely feel as though if I want to run and I can't get money behind my campaign, I'm not going to get there. I think that people don't believe that. I think people have seen how we have 3 council seats right now, 2 council seats where there's an investigation, and 2 council seats that have been vacated based on people paying money to influence votes. And many people believe that's the way politics are run in our community.
They may believe that, but as somebody who's been on the ballot multiple times, people are the difference maker.
What are you seeing on the ground, Adam?
I mean, you hear people talking about these kind of things, and yes, everybody's very frustrated. But when we talk about redistricting and we talk about these things, most people, by and large, are like, I didn't know this thing was happening. How did you tell me? Right? Like, they've got so many things going on that they can't keep track of politics. They can't keep track of government. And, like you all have been talking about redistricting. You've been saying, hey, go get engaged. And they're like, well, somebody was asleep at the wheel. It's like, no, bro, you just had other things going on. And that's real. But we need more than just the same people who are always doing all the work to be involved. And everybody always says that. But the reason the same people are always doing the work is because they have the ability and the time. And so we've got to build space and make space for folks. But those are the people who are always ultimately going to do the hard work. It's like a church. the choir is always going to be the one saying amen because they in church.
We should have more than 20% of registered voters voting in elections. We should have more people registering to vote.
And that's everybody's responsibility.
And this is everybody's responsibility. But I'm going to tell you this. When Barack Obama became president, it was not because the nation woke up and figured out they loved Black people. It is because he figured out how to energize people who rarely voted and didn't vote. I was working at the Brightmore Community Center in his second election when a woman called me up and said, I'm 75 years old. I've never voted and I need to know if I'm registered so I can vote for him. And when it was a polling place, when he came out to vote, young Black men were lined up around the block to vote for Barack Obama. He was able to inspire people to do something different, saying, you know what, it's on voters to vote. It's not on voters to believe that you are going to do something different. You have to sell a message and get people to believe it. If not, what ends up happening is people get elected to office based on a small subset of the people in the communities they represent showing up at the polls. And a lot of people do not check back in with those people to say, am I getting it right? And so I think that we need to see a energizing of that, especially, you know, if we're going to have change in Lansing. And as you're working in new districts, one of the great things about politics is sometimes you have people who have shared interests, even though they live in different places.
Absolutely.
Housing is not a Detroit problem. Housing is a state of Michigan problem. In
It's an American problem.
every single part of the state, rural housing is a mess, suburban housing is a mess, and urban housing is a mess. And unless we come together as a state and say we're going to do something about housing, we got to build those coalitions. And we got to understand that we have something in common with people. The environment is not a Detroit problem. Air moves, water moves, earth is connected through air and water across this United States. So this idea that somehow we can just have a Detroit Black people politics and not connect it to other people and get those coalitions voting in Lansing is significant. And I hope through somehow this redistricting, people figure out we've got to connect with people across the line. And I know you are a politician who's sometimes done that. Sometimes to the dismay of some people, because sometimes you voted against the party, and I've even criticized you for that, but you explained your reasoning, right? But I think that we need to do that more often. And I'm hoping that after we get through this redistricting mess, that we can get back to fixing politics in our community and in our state.
I think it's all one conversation, you know, to your point. And as we talk about, I mean, even climate change, those discussions, it's like, all right, well, the air is different in some communities. Detroit, urban communities, Black communities are hotter. That's why we have different health issues. The localized solution to climate change has got to also be here. It can't just be, we're going to plant trees in the UP and that's going to make Michigan better. It's like, well, I'm down here is where we need clean air near the plant. Like that is where this thing has to happen. We need to address these spaces in context in this moment.
And we need to change our zoning, and we need to change our air regulations and our pollution controls, starting with the federal government and the EPA, and then with Eagle, and then with our local governments.
While we got you on the line,
people.
Adam, here's your agenda.
All right.
So let me. We're coming. We're coming.
I'm ready.
I'm sorry, Senator. We're friends, and so yeah. Tell people once again about Wednesday, October the 20th, what they need to be doing, where they need to be to make sure that their voice is heard.
First, let me say that parking at TCF will be free tomorrow. Not on the roof, but everywhere else, parking will be free at TCF tomorrow. So you can go down as early as noon and sign up to give in-person testimony at the Citizens Redistricting Commission. They want to hear from you. This is their whole purpose, is to listen and hear from you. At 12:30, right outside TCF, we'll have a little bit of a rally, just check in. So folks who have questions about the process or, you know, need to understand better how to talk, they can do that. I'll be there with a number of other, you know, faith leaders, union leaders, and folks who can provide additional space. They'll walk right in and give testimony, and then they can go home. There will be a brief break between 3:30 and 5. And as long as you arrive by 7 p.m., they will hear from you. And this is so important because this is the only time they're going to be in Detroit again before these maps, I don't want to say are finalized, but get a significant, you know, get a lot, get a lot closer. Now you can also continue to participate via Zoom, but they need to see us in person, right? Like if ever there was a moment to put on your double mask or to go down and do the thing that you need to do. Cause I mean, I had this conversation with my mom. I mean, my mom was fuming mad about these lines and telling me I need to, you know how only your mom can tell you about something. And you know, she just got over cancer right before the thing and she's not comfortable in large crowds. I was like, Mom, don't tell me how mad you are. Tell them. And she was like, well, they don't need to hear how angry I am. I was like, no, they need to hear what you care about, because you live in this district, because this is relevant to you. You grew up in this community, and that's what people need to hear. This is not something where you need these crazy, amazing talking points. You just need to go down and tell them your truth about what your neighborhood looks like, what your community looks like, because they've got a bunch of different versions of maps. They've got 10, 15 versions of maps that they're drawing and looking through, and they are listening to you so that they can hear and make feedback, which they have done in every other community. Every community that has shown up and said, hey, could you address my, right here? And they're doing that, right?
And they want to hear from you.
The Bengali community has done an incredible job, put on a master class of saying, hey, this is what our community looks like. It goes from Hamtramck up through Banglatown up into Macomb County.
We just reported on that.
Draw that district. And every time they draw that district, somebody from the Bengali community comes on and says, hey, this is the best map I've ever seen. Way to go. Keep it going.
Right.
Our only positive comment on the whole map. And they're like, do it again.
But that's easy for them because they're all in one space, right? So it's easy for them to do that. I think issues of the Black community are more complex. We live in Detroit. We live in surrounding areas.
We in Oakland, we in Macomb.
Entering suburbs. And I think that really what we have to count on is, in a more complex system, giving simple advice is better than giving a whole lot of it. So I think we've got to tell them the local issues, but I also think this is a local issue, and having a singular message of whether it's promote the vote or the ACWU vote,
AFL-CIO.
AFL-CIO map, whatever it is. Yeah, the AFL-CIO map, whatever map it is, I think that we need to encourage people, whether we say, look at these two maps, look at the maps presented by these people, so that we are giving clear direction, because it seems to me as though the Bengali community is so specific in their demands that it's easier to adopt them. Are we going to, I know you're going to meet with people beforehand and, help prepare. Are you going to encourage people tomorrow for some more specific advice after they get done talking about their local conditions?
Absolutely. So the key talking point, I think, is draw majority Black districts. That's what the Voting Rights Act has always said, which is a 50+1 district. If they draw districts like that, it will help with a variety of things, to include partisan fairness, to include representation, and it can be done. It does not mean that they have to draw the districts only into Detroit. But the reason the districts look so strange is because Detroit is 80% Black. And so if you want to make a district only 30% Black, you got to make the district only 30% Detroit. And that's why you see so many cuts in the district, right? So you talked a little bit about population losses. City of Detroit has lost population over the last 10 years, yet is doubling the amount of districts that currently represent it, right? So you go from 5 senators to 9 senators. You go from 10 House members to 18 House members. So it's
fragmenting representation as opposed to making us whole.
Yeah, the technical term for that would be dilution, right? So if you're looking for the term, you're saying, hey, these maps crack the Black community and dilute our vote. They minimize our ability to elect the candidates of our choosing. And the reason that's so important is because Black people elect Black candidates, white people elect white candidates. And there are only 3 Black women in the legislature who are from non-Black districts elected. Senator Erica Geis in the Senate out of Taylor, Representative Sarah Anthony out of Lansing, and Representative Felicia Brayback out of Pittsfield Township. And so when we look at these communities, it says, hey, 35% seats don't win because there are lots of 35%.
Right. So I think that it's both. I think it's fragmentation and dilution, right?
Absolutely.
Because you're fragmenting our communities as well. You're cutting them into pieces and then diluting the power of the Black vote.
Yeah, it's just with the VRA, the 3 words they use are cracking, packing, and diluting.
Okay, so cracking our communities then.
Correct.
Instead of fragmenting, cracking our communities and diluting. Yep. And so those are the 2 issues that I think we want people to weigh in. And again, I think if we can encourage people around some maps, however you guys do it, I'm not going to be able to be there, but we will be represented. ECN will be represented tomorrow.
We will have reporters there as well.
And let me just shout out to Bridge, who has been doing amazing coverage throughout this process, in a complicated thing. And that's the thing that I think is hard for people. They're like, well, it's just super complicated, right? Like, I have a master's in urban planning. I'm a mapping nerd, right? Like, I was a staffer when they drew the maps the last 10 years ago. I understand these things, but it's really difficult. And it's important to give the commissioners grace because they got hit with a fire hose on information, on data. The census stuff was late, and they are legitimately trying. So,
and they're citizens, and it's independent.
And so when you get there tomorrow, I encourage you also to say thank you to the commissioners, especially the Black ones, because they are carrying a heavy weight. They are carrying the weight of a community that is saying, hey, could you fix this thing? And there have to go against or to challenge the experts who are saying, no, that's enough. And so it's really a moment where we need to lean in and say thank you to all the commissioners, but especially the ones that I think have been carrying the brunt of criticism about why these maps are the way they are. And I don't think that's a fair criticism for Commissioner Kellum or Commissioner Curry.
Senator Adam Hollier, representing the 2nd District in the Michigan State Senate. Senator, how can people get in touch with you in your office?
They can call us at 517-373-7748, or they can follow me on any social media at Adam Hollier Sr. on Instagram or Senator Adam Hollier on Facebook, or shoot us an email at senahollier@senate.michigan.gov. Again, that's senahollier@senate.michigan.gov.
All right. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on @AuthenticallyDetroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Shout out to Authentically Detroit for putting on amazing District 4 debate last week. Donna, and our 100th episode is served as our 100th. This is episode 101, 101. Right. I can't believe we've been doing this that long already.
I know. I'm so proud of the work.
Yeah.
And, shout out because Authentically Detroit has now branched off and it is now an independent organization. We are growing, and we decided that if we were going to growing, we could not just be this kind of thing Orlando when I started, but we had to create some structure around what we are and who we are, just so that we can accommodate new voices. So I'm excited. I was really proud to have one of the only, if not the only, debate in the city of Detroit.
It's an amazing public service.
And there were people from one of the campaigns that doubted that we could do it fairly and bring justice to it, and I think we did. So
that's what happens when you have a Columbia professor just out here dropping knowledge bombs on folks.
I'm trying to tell you, and I want to know who that person was when we get off the air.
And then when you have an Emmy Award-winning journalist, that really does everything that needs to be done. No, I think that there's a commitment to integrity. There's a shared commitment to trying to get it right. So even though we may have our own political perspectives, we actually believe in the power of democracy to create change.
Yeah, and the power of this kind of exchange that we had here today. We had a senator here that yes,
absolutely. A senator and a friend who's going to have us on his podcast.
Oh man, Adam, do you have any shout outs?
Yeah, I just want to give one real quick to Dr. Jonay Caldoon, who just took an executive role at CVS, which I'm really excited about. I've already talked to her.
What is the role?
She's going to be the executive vice president at CVS.
Wow.
And the reason that's so important to me, because all these CVSs have closed, and I've already talked to her, and we're going to start to see some more contributions and commitment into the city. So that's huge. But also want to give a huge shout out to all the people, particularly my friend Tucson Knight and my frat brother Green, who are over at East English Village Academy now dealing with an incredibly difficult task of getting those kids back into school and reacclimated. So if you have the opportunity to put your arms around that school or those students, now is the time.
Yeah, we have a staff person, Daryl Earl, who has done some work at East English Village Prep, and he has joined the cause to try to make sure that we are addressing the needs of the students in the school. It's a long time coming. This school has been in need of some additional resources to address culture and climate.
Well, now they have 2 deans of culture. I was there on Monday. We had a whole clap in, talk to classes. They are doing the work to try and make sure that what happened last week never happens again, and the kids at that school get the kind of education that they deserve in a space that they feel safe in.
That's wonderful.
All right. We thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, we want you to catch the wave.